pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Amendola.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Present.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Glosser. Not here. Ms. Damitz. Here. Mr. Rosario.
Here.
Mr. Lavasser.
Here.
Mayor Bloom.
Here.
Solicitor Corbel is not here. And Engineer Minster.
Here. All right, moving forward with the approval of the bills list dated March 25th, 2019.
So moved.
Second. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Approval of the bills list. Moving forward with approval of the minutes, March 11th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, approval of the minutes, thank you. Moving forward to citizen comments, the manager said nobody signed up today. Alrighty. Moving forward to the acknowledgement of the written receipts for the written reports. Financial reports, Act 511, trust collection reports, property tax collection report, the police report, the EMS report, the ordinance officer's report, the building inspection report, the public works report, the fire department report, and the library report for January and February 2019. That's for the library. And then the manager informed me that the treasurer's report for February 2019 will be delivered next month due to time constraints on the accounting side. Yep. All right. All right, moving forward to the president's report. Added this just to give myself an opportunity to address council and the public. I just wanted to let everybody know that on March 8th, the community was in receipt of the Allegheny League of Municipalities Banner Community Program and Acknowledgements. I went to the ceremony, a couple photos were snapped, and accepted the certificate on behalf of the borough. So on behalf of the entire Crafton Borough team, especially Manager Susko for successfully getting through all that paperwork. We are now one of the many communities that have that designation. So I believe Fred and Marcia are going to be attending ALOM. The manager's going up for a day, so you should be acknowledged at that function as well. So just good job, Team Crafton. And then I've been working with the Shade Tree Commission and the manager's office and the Public Works office on a community cleanup. They'll probably be at the end of April 26th, 27th, just like we've done in the past few years. And the manager suggested maybe even having an opportunity again in the fall. So we're going to move forward with that. So I'm going to keep that report pretty short. So on to the mayor's report.
Just one quick thing, the fire department is holding their annual Night at the Races on April 27th at the firehouse. Anyone's interested in attending, they can contact any of the firemen to get tickets and buy horses. And it's a fundraising event, and you'll be able to check out the new piece of fire apparatus that the fire department purchased to help take the load off of the borough's equipment. And that will be available. All this funding goes to help pay for that piece of equipment. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to the engineer's report.
Yes, all the items that was up for discussion are on the report tonight. There's really no changes to the report, so I don't have anything else to add.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Down by Idlewood, I believe it was like 45 days, 60 days ago, we took a ride along, and we're looking at that culvert where there was some flooding. Are you able to speak to any of the developments on what it would take to make any improvements there, and how we would have to work with the Port Authority to sort of remediate the bottleneck?
That's down at the,
Idlewood Station.
at the station, yes. Yes, there's an area there that is flooding, and it is as a result of a size pipe that is undersized, I should say, at the station itself. So there would be, and we haven't looked at the drainage area to see what size that pipe should be. That's one of the things that we're looking at, is evaluating what the drainage is, looking at the different storms, and then seeing what size pipe that would have to be in order to take, a 50 or 100-year storm to transmit that water downstream. So sometimes those pipes get so large that they're not physically capable of going into the location that they're chosen for. However, that doesn't mean that upsizing wouldn't handle, let's say, lesser storms. So a 50 or a 60-year storm could be transmitted, and just on those rare occasions for larger storms, it may hold back some of the water. But with a larger pipe, the amount of water that backs up would be less, and the duration would be less as well. So that's really what the process is. However, we haven't completed yet, what that analysis is on that drainage shed.
And when's our next Public Works and Engineering meeting?
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow at noon, that group will be meeting to discuss just the status of the projects, as well as any other items that Rob has for us to look at.
All right, so manager, the Public Works Director, Mr. Kraus, myself, will be there with your team.
Yes.
All right. And I think under the rules, we could have one more additional member of council without having to have an issue with a quorum. So if there's a member of council that would like to join the Public Works Engineering Committee meeting tomorrow at Gateway's office, just let me know and we can draw straws and see who wants to hop along. All right? All right, is there anything in addition?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the solicitor's report. Solicitor Corbell's not here with us this evening. Vice President Rosario's, did the solicitor have anything to say?
No, he didn't tell me he had anything else he wanted to add.
Okay. All right. All right. RJ, you've got the deck.
Okay, so agenda item details easy for this meeting because there is one single motion on the agenda for the business section tonight. So that one is just a motion to reappoint Susan Luka to the Shade Tree Commission. She's a current member, interested in serving another term. We did have one member, Luke, I think his last name is pronounced Och, maybe Och, O-C-H, that moved out of the borough. So there will be the remainder of his term open, and there is another letter of interest for a resident that's on the shared council drive. Down in the discussion items section, that's sort of a topic for discussion later, is just addressing the fact that we've had letters of interest for various boards and commissions, and some of those terms either are coming up or open for a little bit, so just kind of redirecting attention in the discussion there if anybody has any interest. So that's it, just for sort of explaining what little is on the agenda. So the first item on my report, after that, Planning Commission, I heard Crafton campaign. This is something that I think is a really lovely idea that came out of the Planning Commission, I think at the last meeting, where there is either a business or window that has this sort of I Heart Crafton sticker in it, that got people talking, and they just thought that it was a nice idea and wondered maybe if there was a way that they could take it and sort of spread it out to the business community as a whole, either as a way to fundraise for sort of those local business events, Main Street type community activities. So that's just something that they've been discussing. They're going to continue working with me, the Planning Commission, the Borough Administration, to see if maybe there's some sort of launch that we could get going, maybe towards the end of summer, sort of at back to school time. Something that they've been discussing is a term called tactical urbanism, which is basically like little pop-up events in which you can engage, get people out of their houses and sort of walking around, engaging with the local business community, the downtown. So one thing that we have a professional planner that is a resident who's been attending the meetings, and she sort of brought up with the chair, Lydia, and I, maybe like the idea of a block party, which is a very common example of tactical urbanism. So they're going to be probably reaching out to the rec board to get this campaign going, and maybe look at that as sort of a launch event. So that's several months in the future, but I just try to, if there are any ideas to put on the radar of council and the group, that's kind of, I'm trying to bring those to you guys before, any formal approvals would be needed, for example, for a block party, because of course you would be shutting down part of the street. So, just FYI, that's something that they're working on, that I think is a really great, first step for kind of building a little bit of buzz for the business community. Have an update, not necessarily a positive one, on the connectivity mapping intern project. Unfortunately, the local government academy awarded about half the projects this year that they have in previous years. For the last several, there were 20 or more communities that were selected. There were 13 this year, and we were not one of them, which surprises me. But, they've had some changes at the administrative level, new executive director, so, maybe they're scaling back, not really sure. Regardless, we've reached out to Carnegie Mellon, because that is where we had our previous intern from, Chris Bell, that's been working with us, to see if maybe we can, still be eligible for another federal community work study position. It is, again, a GIS project, so I think that, depending on the interest there, we have, good potential to pick up another intern. It's just unfortunate because the LGA is a really nice program to participate in. I hope in future years, we'll have projects that we can submit for their consideration. However, like I said, there are options. We're going to try CMU, we're going to try Pitt's Graduate School, Public International Affairs.
And they may have some similar federal work study.
Well, they may. I mean, I'm not personally familiar with it, just because I, as a student there, did not go through an FCS program. But I can certainly, I know people in the career office, so that would be easy for me to reach out to. Either way, the LGA pays $10 an hour, so there is room in the budget for not necessarily a full-time intern at a full pay rate, but certainly room to have somebody come and do a lot of hours throughout either the summer, or perhaps, we're not confined to the summer. We could do it a little later if that fits best. So anyway, point being, I just wanted to let you know that we did get the decision back. I was pretty surprised, but, sometimes you don't win them all. So I will let you know how the other options pan out. Moving on to sort of I guess this is connected to engineering public works, but just a quick announcement. The Green Light Go grants had been executed at the state level. We were sort of waiting for the engineers to proceed until we got those official contracts back, which is really just an administrative thing. So they've been sent over to Mike Haberman, who is the engineer at Gateway, that is working with us on the traffic projects. And we already took care of the work authorization motions a couple meetings ago, so he's pretty much good to go.
Yeah, and that's something that came out of our last Public Works meeting in Gateway, where we sort of, I don't want to say we jumped the gun, but to get moving, we knew we'd have the grants.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of just, it would have been that we would have been waiting for the administrative authorization, because.
But that's given them the opportunity to
go ahead and get going, yeah. So, right, and of course, they've done several Green Light Go projects, so they know not to get started before you get the final execution back. But the amounts that we did for the work authorizations should carry us through the rest of the project engineering wise, so we're just kind of moving, going through the motions on that end. Bill list. Until we're ready for the construction phase, which will probably be sometime either end of this year, going into next year, if that's correct.
Yes, it says we're expecting a return in April, and then, I think it takes a few months, so it's going to be later this year.
Yeah, then we get started on the construction, which is the match portion of the grant, and that is budgeted in the road fund this year, and anything that's remaining will be budgeted into next year's road fund. Speaking of the road fund, 2019 road paving program, I'm going to probably turn this over to Rick, just to elaborate on the road program, but wanted to put it on a radar that we're sort of finishing up the administrative side with the city of Pittsburgh, looking at Ingram Avenue. And I hope that we should have a bid document ready to be advertised by the next meeting. Take it away.
Yes, as far as the program, there are 4 roads, and counting Ingram Avenue. So we're down to 3 as far as what this road program will be bid at. Highland Avenue from North Emily to its terminus, Crafton Boulevard, North Emily to Parkview Street, and South Linwood is Woodlawn to Ewing. So those 3 roads are programmed. That cost, each of those, the total cost is $323,000 minus the Ingram, so we're about $220,000 for the program that's proposed in those 3 roads.
So, excuse me, what part of Crafton Boulevard did you say?
North Emily to Parkview.
Okay, so we have that little tiny piece of Crafton Boulevard between Bradford and where the city kicked in, so we had the state came up to Bradford, and the city came in at Baldwin.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's that little tiny piece that's really horrid.
Uh,
Is there any way that when they're doing that part, we could look at finishing that little piece?
Yeah, I thought that
was.
So that's not part of the spec?
no, it doesn't look like it here.
So can we add that?
I think we could. I think it's small enough that we could just get them to go up and mill and pave that since it's such a short section. It's not gonna really do much to the budget. What were you saying, there was some
The gas
utility work
company's
there?
supposed to be doing some of
I
that.
think that's the Hawthorne area,
Oh.
I wanna say. Rob's been primarily meeting with them to
Yeah,
take care of
there
that.
may be some utility culpability there, but I mean, it's just the whole thing hasn't been paved, but the utilities were in there quite a lot.
Okay.
the
Yeah,
last couple
We'll
of
check with
years.
that
I
first to see.
I agree, because I thought part of it was a cost share with the gas company, because I thought where
Yeah, and I
people
think
sub was in
Rob
there.
is handling that, that's why maybe it's not in the program. But
Yeah.
I'll get with Alberto to get
But
with Rob.
push comes to shove, we'll
Figure
get
it
it.
out. Yeah, I think even if the utilities do, they might do 1 lane.
Mhm,
So,
that's it, 'cause
you know, then we
They
just
were only
figure,
on one side.
it would really be bad if both ends in 1 lane would be
Right, I
fixed,
mean,
so.
I think that's an easy thing to include, we'll just double check with Rob tomorrow, make sure we know, exactly what part we're expecting to split.
That's true, we could include it, since we haven't bid it yet, we could
Right.
include it in the
In the
bid
spec,
price.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
that's true.
either way, we'll get it taken care of
I hear about it.
often,
Huh.
you probably can hear it from your house.
Yeah, it's
When
pretty
people
terrible.
drive down. Yeah, we'll get it taken care of. And I do want to just put a note out there that the road program this year is of course sort of reduced scope, and that's because we put the Green Light Go match in the road fund this year. So essentially what was left from the match was what was budgeted for the paving program.
Yeah, you're getting, what, $760,000 worth of work for about $1.75?
Yep.
So it's quite a good return.
Yeah. So, unless there are any other questions, comments, things to add about the road program? Okay. So next item, shade tree ordinance research. This is something that Council President asked us to take care of a handful of months ago, just kind of put, a goal date for the spring, basically to have a rework of our shade tree ordinance because it is a bit outdated, does not necessarily address all the things that are in the state code. So did a little bit of research, went hunting on, who would have some good model ordinances for us to take a look at and shoot over to the Shade Tree Commission for review. There were a few that were favorable. Carnegie's one, Swickley's was another that was very robust actually, and kind of comparable to the scope of what we're capable of. So the Shade Tree Commission has had the chance to review it. I've had the chance to review it, kicked it over to the solicitor, and he should have a review copy for me to be able to provide to all of you by April 1st, so that it can be considered.
And you can send it to everybody's inbox, just so everybody
Yeah.
can make sure they get it.
Yeah, I'll put it, in the shared drive and just forward it out in an email. So just an FYI, that's gonna be coming up. Again, I do think that, from reviewing it, we're all pretty satisfied. I think that it's gonna address most of the questions.
Yeah, I think between that ordinance and the ordinance that we passed with the nuisance, we should have good coverage. It closes all the gaps that we had last year.
Yep. So keep an eye out for that for the next meeting. On the subject of trees, Arbor Day and Cleanup Day schedule, as you mentioned, April 27th is the date that that's been scheduled for. The Shade Tree Commission helps to organize that. We're looking at discussing a fall planting. So there may be a memorial tree that's put up at the Arbor Day celebration, but not a full planting because this is the year of the cicadas in this area. I don't know how bad they get in Crafton, but yeah, that's also how I feel about those. So just out of an abundance of caution, just in case, you know, they're significant enough here that they would damage any of the trees that they spent time and money planting. They bump it back to the fall, which is usually a pretty good time to plant anyway because there's less risk of the trees burning out when it's cooler and a little less drying with the heat. So just an FYI, that the dates will be a little different, but they will still be having an Arbor Day celebration. Community Center Kitchen Inspection Update. This is something that was brought up because we used to have the Community Center Kitchen inspected as part of the senior dinner, among other operations that we had there involving food handling. The permit lapsed in 2012, I believe. So there is a nominal fee involved with getting that reinstated, but there is also a little bit more of a complicated inspection process compared to probably originally when we got it done, which was in the 90s, I think. So you have to provide a full inventory of all the items, floor plan, submit a permit review fee, and then it takes a couple weeks turnaround time usually for the county to process it. So we're working on getting the application materials for that together just so we can, you know, make sure that everything is current and see if there are any issues that the health department wants us to address.
That would bring us back into compliance with the Allegheny Health.
Well, it would at least tell us if there's anything that we need to do to get back into compliance.
Okay.
And assuming that we take care of any issues, then yeah, they would issue the permit. It's less stringent than a full restaurant inspection, which there's a particular category that's essentially geared towards public community center type kitchen facilities. So that's what we'll be applying under. Just not necessarily information that we readily have on hand because this is not an inspection that we've been doing recently. So that's just going to take a little bit of time to get it put together. But moving forward on that.
Quick question, you mentioned last Friday something about catering and that they really do appreciate the municipalities going ahead and getting their kitchens.
Yeah, so I think there's some type of, and you know, I'm not an expert on health department permits, but there's some type of catering permit that they like to have caterers to have. So I think they're kind of hoping that by licensing the kitchens, it will make it a little easier to catch anybody that's doing unlicensed catering. I'll use the same caterer for the senior dinners typically, so that's not so much of a...
Yeah, they should be
Yeah.
licensed.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to actually check into it because this is all a new process for us. But, you know, in general, that's part of why they have everyone get the inspections is to kind of help make sure that everything that's going on there is in compliance.
Okay.
Last two items, just real quick announcements. Final audit report is coming out within the next week or so. I've asked the auditors to come back and give a presentation on it at the April 8th meeting, which is a very common thing to have done when you get your final audit report. So, you know, they're more than happy to do that, answer any questions about the process, financials, borough purchasing, things like that. So that will be a presentation on the agenda at the next meeting. I do expect that they will have a favorable report. And last item, ALOM Spring Conference, we touched on this earlier, but I will be attending for one day. Upcoming, I believe it is next Friday. So that's everything. Sorry we had a long one this meeting, but short business agenda, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, moving forward with the business agenda. Motion to reappoint Susan Luka to the Shade Tree Commission for a term ending on March 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving forward to discussion items. Are they going to go over the letters of interest?
Yes, so Planning Commission is the most immediate term that's coming up. Mike Crown is the current seated member. He is interested in reappointment as long as the council would like to reappoint him. was the information that he passed along. We had a couple other letters of interest that, we would keep in circulation, basically. Whatever the decision of council is. I believe there was also at least one letter for a civil service term, which I think we do have one seat open, but I would have to double check on that. All this information is also listed on our website anytime you wanted to take a look at the different member terms, vacancies, anything like that. If we end up expanding the rec board to 9 seats, then we would need to advertise basically for letters of interest for that. That hasn't been put out yet since that ordinance hasn't been passed, but that is something the solicitor has been directed to work on for council's review. I believe that we have a building appeals board letter as well, I think for an open term. That process, those seats are a little more stringent just because they are reviewing actual building code, so people typically have to show that they have some sort of experience in construction building. So the individual that applied has included a resume. Again, these are all on the shared drive in the boards and commission's letters of interest folder. So just sort of wanted to throw this out there if there was anyone in particular the council wanted to discuss, or just to put it on your radar that we should probably take a look at any of the open seats and the letters submitted for consideration for those, since they've either come up or are coming up in the future.
Okay. And then we got a text from Angela Palchowski saying that Matt's not going to be able to make it. So,
No Matt Briner then.
but since it's on the agenda, just give everybody a heads up. Crafton Celebrates is asking to do another beer garden. I made the recommendation to the manager that maybe we do a raffle to the organizations that are qualified, so it's fair and everybody has a chance. So I think we're going to talk more about that when Matt gets here. But beyond that, that's
I
it.
will
That's
let
what
you
we
know
got,
if
right?
he's able to attend in the future, but I don't have any further information right now about what he was going to present on, so.
Yeah.
What do you mean that they have a fair chance?
Well, last year, the fire department expressed that they wanted the opportunity to do the beer garden, because they had asked in the prior years to do that, and the previous councils had said we weren't doing beer gardens, and then, this came up and they weren't available the opportunity to put a bid in to do it. Makes sense. So I think to make it democratic and fair, just everybody either flip a coin or pull a straw and see how it goes.
So do I recall that the organization that benefited last year was the high school football?
It was the Booster Club.
The Booster Club.
Yeah, the
For high
Cougars.
school, yeah, for the, so was that,
Carlton Cougars.
yeah.
But I'm sure Matt will come back and make his business case, so, but just want to throw that out there. We do have an opportunity to guide this since we have to grant the approval, so. All right, moving forward to community announcements. Do you want to?
Yeah, so this has been on the last couple of agendas, but I'm trying to, put the word out there as much as possible, that there is a fire safety info session. Finally, it's arrived this Wednesday evening. This is something that our code enforcement officer kind of dreamed up, sort of a, hey, I'm a homeowner, what do I do, sort of class series. So this is the first one that she has put together in combination with BIU, Building Inspection Underwriters, and the Crafton Volunteer Fire Department. So just kind of things that tend to get, checked out. On a fire inspection, just basic fire safety things, if you have kids in the home, what can you do to make it safer for them? Some of the different sessions that we're considering in the past, depending on how this one goes, is, sort of, my house makes funny noises, what does it mean? Because I know as a new homeowner, I don't know what the funny noises, in my house mean. And, just is this indicative of a problem, or, what are sort of the basic maintenance things that you have to do over time as you move into homeownership. And so, of course, we're always open for other suggested, basic course topics. We're going to be looking for, not-for-profit individuals that, or organizations that can come in and maybe provide, basically a session at low or nominal cost to provide. So that will be in the community center, 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. Hope that she sees everybody there, so there.
Okay.
One question, what night did you say the farmer's banquet was?
April.
April, okay, April 27th.
Maryland.
I'm sorry.
When's the fireman's banquet?
Farmers Banquet?
Or, I'm sorry, the fire, the
Yeah.
night of the races.
April 27th?
Okay, when I said 27th, I'm thinking
I
that
thought there was
was.
a conflict.
Oh, yeah, no, this is March 27th,
Yeah.
that's April.
Okay. And then, if you could talk to Susan about maybe calling down Allegheny County Health Department about their lead safe program, I think that would probably be a really helpful next info session. We do have a lot of older housing stock and a lot of young families moving in and raising their families in there, and they need to know what they have before they start doing their renos. Thank you. All right, moving on to additional citizen comments.
I have one question
Kathy, would you,
to get up there.
yeah, name, address?
Elaine Watson, 74 Fountain Street. I was under the impression that Sycamore was going to be done this year, Sycamore Street.
Sycamore and Fountain are part of that sewer separation.
That's the group grant.
Okay, so it could be done then because of that.
We are currently working on the permitting with the city of Pittsburgh, but I believe the assumption is that it's going in the ground this summer.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, there will be some restoration of the road
Okay,
during that process.
that's all, thank you.
Sure.
And as we discuss these bigger projects, we're gonna try to put together an informational webpage and get some timelines and maps put together. We talked about that over the past, 60, 90 days. So when we're all sitting here, we have a place to, for a point of reference, because these issues are sweeping, and, as Ms. Perry pointed out, if we're focusing on a very technical issue with regards to stormwater, maybe a surface restoration issue may have been overlooked. So it's good to have many perspectives. And so that's the point of getting that information on the webpage. So thank you. All right. Seeing no additional citizen comments, I'll move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Should I? Yeah, we're going to have a executive session at the end of this meeting, and we will follow up at the next meeting. Thank you.